Coming up on MetaverseXpress, nearly 7,000 Web3 enthusiasts came together for the Permissionless Conference. I'll take you inside and on the stage to hear how they address the elephant in the room. Plus, the minds behind Web3 explain growing pains that will come with scaling. Find out what to expect as more users enter this space. And speaking of this space, what is it? I mean, really. Wait till you hear the experts define the metaverse. This is MetaverseXpress, your world, your news. I'm your host, Mona. Thank you for joining me today. And be sure to subscribe below for your weekly news update. All right, guys, let's jump right into today's top stories because it's a long one. The tech momentum continues to build in South Florida with the first ever Permissionless Conference that happened in Palm Beach this past week. The summit was hosted by media company Blockworks in partnership with Bankless and Coinbase Exchange. The event brought in upwards of 7,000 Web3 builders, leaders, creators, and enthusiasts, including myself. The main hall of the Palm Beach Convention Center was transformed into a festival of top tech in the Web3 space. Over the course of the 3 days, the series of speakers touched on everything from decentralized finance to the metaverse and NFTs. And of course, it wouldn't be a Web3 event without an NFT gallery, right? Marketplace OpenSea sponsored a series of galleries displaying NFTs on ginormous digital screens, as you can see here, with mood lighting and just amazing soundscape. Honestly, I learned more in 3 days than I have in 2 years of teaching myself about some of these topics. And I have to tell you, diamond hands were on full display. The timing of this conference couldn't have been more ideal after UST and LUNA collapsed in the week prior. But everyone, including the lunatics, were unfazed by the volatility. If anything, the speakers motivated all of us to spend less time thinking about token prices and more about what's being built. The show started with Chris Dixon, the father of mental models for Web3, just a fascinating guy, giving us the green pill to take a longer-term perspective.
You know, first you see prices go up, and then you see social media activity, and then you see developer activity, et cetera. And so I really believe this is kind of the kind of patterns that we see. And what that yields is, although it's very chaotic per quarter, you said we had a bad week, it may be a bad year, but if you zoom out and you say, is this going to be a bad 3 years? So far, if this pattern continues, and I believe it will, it's actually a much more kind of orderly kind of growth and progression than it would feel like when you're inside of it. I think that the kind of quality of the developers is increasing, the infrastructure is maturing. So I would just say, you know, not to minimize the you know, the bad stuff going on, but I do think if you step back and look at the broader trends, I think there's a lot of reasons to be very optimistic.
Now, this was very interesting when Chris Dixon explained how with the internet, there's no transition stage between skepticism and acceptance. Take a listen.
By the way, this is the history of working on the internet. It's the history of having everybody say what you're doing is a toy, it's a bubble, it's fake. It's just over and over. And then suddenly it flips a switch and it's like, oh my God, it's so important that we have to, like, you know, we have geopolitics as to, like, govern, you know, there's never an intermediate phase where it's like pretty important or something. It's always like, it's a joke, you're a fraud. Oh my God, it's so important, it needs to be, like, you know, nationalized or something.
Dixon went on to call this stage a golden period for crypto. Amazing, right? Now, with all eyes on DeFi and what happened with Luna, Josh Goodbody of Creator reminded all of us that we're still in the early stages of crypto, so we should expect things to break.
We're extremely early, and with any kind of innovation, things break. And when they break, and it's a large project, it's an extremely catastrophic event. And so, I think to your point, the infrastructure here itself didn't break. What did break was the model and the assumptions that came with that model. The positive note is that the infrastructure didn't break. The infrastructure kept performing. There were some problems with the chain, but overall the infrastructure that supported the ecosystem kept working. But the actual underlying assumptions and the modeling behind some of the, for example, UST and anchor mechanisms were untested at a scale like this. So there is a little bit of a positive note that we can abstract from this.
A positive note indeed. Now, despite UST breaking, Konstantin Richter of Block Demon said he too is excited.
From my perspective, I'm super excited about even probably algorithmic stable tokens, but I think you need insurance products. You need a lot more institutional grade security systems, not just on the physical tech side, which I think we have at this point in the community, but really around insurance, for example, as well as we talked backstage a little, even disclaimers and information rights for people who participate in these networks.
Lots of enthusiasm and big picture thinking on day one, reminding us that it's still early for crypto. Crypto is not just about pumping and dumping tokens, and builders are still building out the infrastructure. Yep, and that is the sound of day 2 by Ben Jones of Optimism, waking up the bar goers from the night before bright and early. The session kicked off with the question, how do we get the next billion users into crypto? And the answers got technical and fiery on layer 1 and layer 2.
There's a mono chain, and the idea of a mono chain is there's basically one big chain that we can really scale up, make it way faster, parallelize the heck out of it, and run the world's crypto on that. There's another point of view which kind of looks at that and says there should be many chains, the multi-chain future, and these should all sort of talk to each other slowly, and because we'll have many chains, we'll be able to scale more, and we'll have a more sort of heterogeneous model. Our view at Optimism is generally that these are basically two sides of the same coin, and that really what is really going to exist in the future is like the super chain.
Again, I fully align with what Ben said and what Ilya said. We believe in the multi-chain future, and we believe that's the only viable future if we want to onboard the world to this exciting new network of value and people that we're trying to build with Web3.
I'm not a big fan of an environment whereby there is only one chain that we're all building on top of. I think that's inherently risky. I think that's also inherently defeats the purpose of competition in the space.
If I were an L1 right now, I would take all the awesome execution stuff I would do, I would turn it into an L2, secure it onto Ethereum, and I'd be good to go.
So, I mean, I'll take the bait.
We can close the panel.
Ideally, like, we should solve the complexity of behind the scenes, right? We should not push it on the user.
I think we can scale today. I think it'll get better over time, but we also need to figure out the adoption part a little bit faster.
A very technical debate for this Cub reporter, but what's evident is that there's value and interest in building Web3 infrastructure. We are still very early, and there's still a long road ahead to scaling and adoption. Now, despite some of us running out of fuel on day 3, there was still a lot of WAGMI energy listening to builders and creators talk about what they're building and creating, especially in the Metaverse, which started day 3 with the question, what is the Metaverse?
You know, I think of the Metaverse more as a series of attributes versus sort of a hardcore definition. I think some of those attributes are that it's an open economy, that there can be an unlimited number of users that are part of that Metaverse. I think that having, interoperability is going to be very important as well.
It's going to be a platform where you're going to be able to sell digital wearables, digital products, etc., and socially interact with each other. And there'll be this massive market space, marketplace behind.
If the current internet is platforms that provide resources, then this next version of the internet and the Metaverse will be more so places that provide experiences. Instead of shopping with your mom in person only when you get to go visit her, instead you'll be able to come together in a digital world and try on dresses on your avatar.
I always wanted to hear Metaverse leaders explain the Metaverse in their own words, and I think they did a really great job of doing exactly that. By the way, if you were wondering what is a phygital, George Yang said it's an item with both a physical and a digital identity. But the metaverse is going to be more than a place for you to buy your next phygital or meet your friends to go shopping. The speakers also talked about the metaverse as a place to have fun playing games and earn money.
I'm really excited about the fact people can have fun and earn money. I'm excited that people will soon be able to listen to music and earn money. And I'm excited that people can watch movies one day and earn rewards and potentially money. So I think these things exist together, and I'm more excited, bearing in mind this is Web3, how those applications work with games. Like, what's that interoperability? Because that's what we're meant to be doing. We're not meant to be building walled gardens where we try and keep people in. We're meant to let people in and out to their benefit.
But none of this would be possible without Web3 communities. So community building during bear markets was something the speakers brought much focus to and emphasized.
Community building is making sure that everyone understands that they have unique skills that they can use to help grow the size and strength of your product, right? So I think having like consistent call to actions around how people can help, I think that's really key. And as you mentioned, right, like basically breaking down the barriers between the core team and contributors and the community, and really creating a kind of intertwined hive mind that is pushing the growth of the project. And I also say that bear markets and market volatility are great for community building.
No doubt the industry leaders dropped some knowledge and reassurance on the stage over the 3-day event, reminding us again that crypto space is more about what's being built and less about what's being traded. I also caught up with some of the speakers one-on-one for a deeper dive on some of these topics. I'll be posting those interviews and more in the coming days, so be sure to subscribe for notifications right below. Here's a sneak peek.
What we're doing at Gala is allowing people to experience this whole new way of earning money and working and living by giving them something that's fun and engaging, that feels natural and feels good. And for me, whether that's games, whether that's music that I want to listen to that's so ubiquitous, everybody can access it, or whether it's film, whether they're animations or series or movies, all of these things now represent opportunities to just give people the chance.
All right, that's it for your top 3 Metaverse headlines today. If you'd like to hear more from Metaverse Express, you know what to do. Please like the video, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you next week with more news in the Metaverse.